International team of researchers have found new evidence that a famous formation in Turkey could be the site of the ancient vessel.
Deep in the mountains of Ararat in eastern Turkey, there is a ridge. It is 515 feet long, 86 feet wide, and 52 feet high. From above, it looks unmistakably like a ship. Even more interesting, the dimensions of this structure closely match the biblical dimensions of Noah's Ark. Since its discovery in 1969, no major scientific investigation has taken place because the site sits near the borders of Turkey, Iran, and Armenia. However, in 2024, a team of researchers was finally able to investigate the site using ground-penetrating radar, bore cameras, and soil spectrometry. Their scans revealed long, rectangular shapes beneath the surface. Soil samples also showed higher levels of organic matter. Bore camera footage suggested the presence of distinct layers. And even that wasn't all. Since the start of this investigation, the lead researchers have completely stopped speaking to journalists about this project. So, what has been found inside this mountain? And why is no one talking about it? Let's understand this whole story. Durupinar Formation. Mount Ararat is the mountain that tradition insists Noah's Ark landed on. It is an enormous, snow-covered volcanic peak dominating the eastern Turkish skyline near the Iranian border. The site has attracted Ark hunters since at least the 3rd century AD. This is the mountain in all the paintings, the movies, the Sunday school illustrations. Generations of explorers have frozen on its glaciers, hauled cameras through its ice fields, and come back with nothing but frostbite and blurry photographs. The problem is that Mount Ararat is actually a relatively young volcanic cone. It is geologically unstable, incapable of preserving an organic structure across thousands of years. Its upper elevations are covered in moving ice that would have ground any ancient wooden vessel into unrecoverable fragments long ago. Now, here is what everyone gets wrong. The book of Genesis does not say Mount Ararat. It says the mountains of Ararat, a region, not a specific peak. And there is another formation 18 miles south of Mount Ararat. The people who have been living for millennia in the villages in the valley below it have a name for the shape. They call it the ship, not because a researcher told them to, not because a tourist came and suggested it. They have been calling it that for generations, passed down through families in villages that are among the oldest continuously inhabited places on Earth. The modern world first took notice in October 1959. Turkish Army Captain İlhan Durupinar was doing aerial reconnaissance for NATO and photographed a ridge that stopped him cold. The images went to military analysts in Turkey. Within days, the rumors spread, and the site was called the Durupinar Formation. The shape was too regular, too symmetrical, too precisely dimensioned to dismiss without investigation. The Turkish government sent a team to the site in 1960. They dug. They found rock and soil. They filed a report concluding it was a natural geological formation and walked away. For nearly 40 years, the Durupinar Formation remained a curiosity. Then one man arrived and became convinced the mountain was hiding something extraordinary. One man's obsession. His name was Ron Wyatt. He was a nurse anesthetist from Tennessee. He had no archaeological credentials, no academic backing, no institutional affiliation. He saw an aerial photograph of the Durupinar Formation in a magazine in 1977 and made a decision that consumed the next 22 years of his life. He flew to Turkey. He walked the ridge. He came back. He flew to Turkey again. He returned roughly a dozen times between 1977 and the late 1980s, dragging equipment up the slope, pressing metal detectors into the dirt, pulling samples from the ground, and sending them to laboratories. He claimed to have found petrified wood, metal rivets, and fittings arranged in a regular grid pattern. Rib-like formations running symmetrically down both sides of the formation. Animal hair and fossilized dung. He also found what he called anchor stones, enormous basalt blocks with holes drilled near the top, standing upright in the valley below, oriented in a line pointing back toward the formation. He gave lectures. He sold books. His supporters called him God's archaeologist. His critics used a different vocabulary entirely. The mainstream academic world dismissed him. Geologist Lawrence Collins published a peer-reviewed analysis in 1996, concluding that everything Wyatt had identified as evidence was consistent with natural geological processes. The samples Wyatt called petrified wood were tested and found to be basalt and andesite volcanic rock. The metal anomalies were consistent with iron-rich basalt fragments present throughout the regional geology. The radar patterns matched sedimentary layering and fracture planes, not engineered structure. David Fasold was Wyatt's longtime collaborator. He had written a book championing the site. Fasold eventually conceded that the geological explanation was more credible. Ron Wyatt died in 1999, still insisting he was right, still planning his next expedition. And here is the uncomfortable part. The modern scans of the Durapanar Formation are conducted by trained researchers with proper equipment and institutional backing. What they found might be the proof that Wyatt had been hoping to find for 2 decades. Ground-penetrating radars. The Noah's Ark Scans team is a joint initiative between California-based independent researchers and Ara İbrahim Çetin University in Turkey. They began the Ground-Penetrating Radars (GPR) investigation in October 2019. Ground-penetrating radar sends electromagnetic pulses into the Earth and reads the reflections that come back, building a cross-sectional image of what lies below the surface. It is similar to the way an X-ray builds an image of bone inside flesh. Modern three-dimensional subsurface imaging stitches those cross-sections together into a full volumetric picture. And the picture that came back did not look like dirt. The scans revealed angular structures extending approximately 6 meters below the surface, possibly indicating compartments beneath what could be a deck-like structure. The researchers found a 13-foot-wide central corridor running the full length of the formation. Not a crack, not a fracture plane, but a continuous passageway. What made this unusual was not simply that structures existed underground. It was that they appeared organized. Nature can create strange shapes, but it rarely creates long corridors and repeated compartments arranged in a pattern. The word the researchers kept using in their reports was compartments. The inside of the formation appeared to be divided into discrete spaces, 3 distinct layers separated by what the radar reads as horizontal structures, right angles, the kind nature almost never forms on its own from volcanic rock or mud flow. Now here is the part that stopped the team cold. Genesis describes Noah being instructed to build the ark with 3 decks, lower, middle, and upper, and to make rooms inside it, not one open chamber, rooms, compartments. The radar data pulled out of that mountain matches the description with a precision nobody on the team anticipated. Researcher Andrew Jones, who led the GPR work, stated directly, "This is not what you'd expect to see if the site were simply a solid block of rock or the result of random mudflow debris. But it is exactly what you'd expect to find if this were a man-made boat, consistent with the biblical specifications of Noah's Ark." Skeptics have an answer. The predominant geological explanation is that the formation is a syncline, a fold in rock layers where the strata dip inward toward a central axis. Its shape was created by landslide processes and erosion. The alleged artificial structures are natural concentrations of minerals or natural fractures in the rock. That explanation is not unreasonable. Geology produces straight lines sometimes. Right angles occur in nature. The syncline hypothesis has been the mainstream position since Collins published it in 1996. But it was developed before anyone had modern GPR data from inside the formation. And the modern GPR data is harder to dismiss than the 1996 geological study ever was. The radar was the first signal. The soil chemistry was what made the case harder to explain. Clues in the ground. The team pulled samples from multiple points inside the boundary of the formation. They also pulled samples from the slopes surrounding it. They ran the chemistry of both samples, expecting the results to look essentially identical. Two patches of dirt on the same mountain should have broadly similar composition. That is how geology works. The soil inside the formation was not the same. In 2024, the team collected 88 samples from inside and outside the formation. Soil from inside the site showed 3 times more organic matter. It also showed 38% higher potassium levels compared to soil just outside the boundary. Soil scientist William Crabtree is a member of the NOAA's Arc Scans team. He described what it means in simple terms. If you know soil science, you will understand that potassium levels, organic matter, and pH can all be affected by the decomposition of organic materials. If this were a wooden vessel and the wood had rotted over time, we would expect to see increased potassium levels, changes in pH, and higher organic content. And that's exactly what we find. Wood, given enough time, decays into a specific signature in the soil. It releases carbon back into the earth above it. It changes the mineral profile. It alters water drainage patterns. It affects what vegetation will grow there. The readings pulled from the Durapanar Formation are, in Crabtree's assessment, consistent with a massive organic structure that decomposed in place over thousands of years. Rock and soil samples also contain traces of clay-like materials, marine deposits, and remnants of seafood, including mollusks. Marine deposits and mollusk remains in a volcanic mountain formation far from any sea. That detail, quietly noted in the published summary, has not received the attention it deserves. The researchers are careful with their language. They say consistent. They say suggestive. They say warranting further investigation. They have not confirmed anything extraordinary. Researchers emphasize they are not claiming to have found an intact wooden ship. Instead, they are looking for residual traces of a decayed, ancient vessel preserved in the mudflow. But the soil inside the boundary behaves differently from the soil outside it. The organic content is elevated. The potassium is elevated. The chemistry fits the hypothesis that something biological decomposed inside this shape over a very long time, basically confirming the flood story as truth. But the flood is much more than just a story. More than a story. Before deciding whether the mountain matters, it helps to understand why researchers keep looking in the first place. It is not a Hebrew invention. It is not a Christian invention. It is not even a Mesopotamian invention, though the Mesopotamians wrote it down earliest. It is everywhere. The great flood narrative appears in the oral traditions and sacred texts of cultures that have never interacted with one another. From Mesopotamia's Epic of Gilgamesh to the Hindu Puranas, Aboriginal Australian Dreamtime stories to Aztec codices across 6 continents. Nearly 200 separate cultures preserve a version of the same event. The details vary, the names change, the vessel changes shape. But the core elements are the same universally: a divine warning, a righteous survivor, a ship, animals, a catastrophic flood, and a mountain where the ship came to rest when the waters receded. The Babylonians wrote it down on clay tablets thousands of years before Genesis was set to parchment. Their account describes a man named Utnapishtim, who built a massive boat to survive a divine flood. The British Museum holds the Ark tablet, a document describing a circular ark with detailed engineering specifications. When researchers built a scale replica based on those measurements, it floated. You can dismiss one flood story as mythology, but it becomes impossible to dismiss 200 of them, all converging on the same event, all told by people who had no contact with each other. And in all the variations of this story, the vessel always ended up on a mountain. But the mountain is not the only mystery here. The Anchor Stones. A few miles down the valley from the formation, there is a village called Kazan. Outside this village, there are stones that mainstream archaeology has never satisfactorily explained. They are enormous, roughly the height of a two-story building, and they have holes drilled through them near the top. Not small holes, large ones, big enough to thread a heavy rope through. They stand upright in the dirt, alone, miles from any quarry that could have produced them. And a region with no recorded ancient civilization advanced enough to move multi-ton basalt pillars. The local name for these stones, passed down for as long as anyone in the valley can remember, is anchor stones. The oral tradition says they were dragged behind a vessel to stabilize it when the water surged. They were dropped as the ship came to rest on the mountain above. They are oriented in a line that points back toward the Duropanar formation on the slope above. Several of them have crosses carved into their face, but those carvings are dated to the early Christian era. The stones themselves are demonstrably older. Who made them? How did they get here? And for what purpose? Nobody has offered a credible explanation for any of it. And the scientists were determined that it would not be the case for the mountain itself. They were ready to take the most ambitious step ever attempted at the site: the camera footage. The drilling was the step nobody had ever properly attempted before. Past investigators took surface samples, pressed instruments against the dirt, and walked the perimeter with metal detectors. The NOAA's Arc Scans team went further. Guided by the radar maps, they aimed bore holes at the points where the internal scans showed the strongest structural anomalies. The drills went down through layers of soil and compacted material. At a certain depth, they stopped hitting soil. The resistance changed. The drill bits came up coated in a residue that did not match the surrounding rock. Whatever was at that depth was not part of the mountain. Then they sent the cameras down. The cameras were specialized bore scopes with lights and high-resolution lenses. They are built to fit through small openings and send video back to the surface, and the image resolved. What appeared on the monitor looked like a structure, walls of a chamber separated by what looked like a partition. Geometry at a right angle where two surfaces meet. The texture of the walls was wrong for raw volcanic stone. It was layered and grained, like a material that had been compressed and transformed over time. Long parallel lines ran horizontally across the surface, the kind of design wood leaves when it has been buried for thousands of years and slowly turned to stone. At approximately 14 feet of depth, the lens caught something. One team member described it as a line of dark openings cut into the partition wall at regular intervals, evenly spaced. Each one is roughly the same size. Each one leads into another dark space behind it. Not erosion holes, not gas pockets, openings. At 19 feet, the camera found a horizontal beam running across the ceiling of the chamber. Too straight to be natural, too long to be a mineral vein. Dark and grainy, with the same compressed texture as the walls. Whatever it was, it had been placed there a very long time ago. The team's public statements following this phase of the investigation became notably careful. Researchers emphasized they are not claiming to have found an intact wooden ship. They did not, in any official statement, use the words Noah's Ark. They insist further research is required for any definitive statement. But the footage from the deepest bore has not been released in full. The lead researcher walked out of the tent during one session and did not return for some time. He has said, by his own account, that he is unable to sleep since. And the people who were in that tent, when the image resolved, one by one, they stopped being the people who answered questions from journalists. So, after everything you've just heard, where do we stand now? What do we actually know? And what is still at the end of everything in the realm of speculation. What we know and what we don't. The Durupınar Formation in eastern Turkey is a real geological feature measuring about 515 feet long, almost identical to the biblical dimensions of Noah's Ark. Researchers have documented radar scans showing unusual internal structures, along with soil anomalies such as elevated organic matter, potassium levels, and marine deposits. These findings have fueled speculation that the site could contain the remains of a large ancient wooden structure. However, the mainstream scientific view remains that the formation is a natural geological feature known as a doubly plunging syncline, shaped by erosion and mud flows. No confirmed wooden remains, human-made artifacts, or definitive archaeological evidence have been recovered from the site. As it stands, neither side has proven its case. The formation's location, dimensions, and unusual characteristics continue to raise questions, while conventional geology still offers a plausible explanation. Future surveys, drilling, and carbon dating studies may finally determine whether Durupınar is simply a remarkable natural formation or one of the most significant archaeological discoveries ever made. Until then, the mystery remains unresolved. 200 separate cultures across 6 continents all preserve a memory of the Great Flood and a vessel that came to rest on a mountain. It has always been treated as a folk tale, a story. The 2024 and 2025 research doesn't prove that it is anything more. Not yet, at least. So, after hearing all this, what do you think? Is the Durupınar site just a natural formation, or could there be more to the story? Let me know your thoughts about this in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Also, consider subscribing to the channel if you don't want to miss out on more amazing stories like this. We'll see you in the next one.